welcome to the building a budget sheet in Excel. So just before we get started, so this is a combination of what we've done in the Excel fundamentals, what we've done in how you can slice and dice with using pivot tables, and how we're going to build a monthly budget sheet. Quick and simple and easy, but we're going to combine all of the things that we've done in the last two into this one. So if you guys haven't seen the last two, I would say that's a good starting point. Give you some understanding in terms of how pivot tables works, and formulas and functions, as well as the fundamental side of things that we've looked at before. So without any further ado, I'm going to try to build a budget sheet in about 30 minutes time. That's the challenge. So just bear with me, guys. Let me quickly share my screen with you and let's get started. So yeah, what I've done was I've kind of started because I knew that the time factor is going to catch me. So I kind of built this, showing you guys, or not building it myself, because this is easy enough. This is easy just to put these things in the cells. So I put categories, budget, actual, difference, and I put down my categories in terms of how I'm going to use this. This ultimately becomes this part here of or this table here ultimately becomes my measuring stick. Okay, so I'm going to be using this as a measuring stick. So guys, where I got this idea from as a budget sheet is actually from Apple. These guys are pretty useful in making complex things look easy. So I decided to incorporate it in Excel because of all the tools that is available to us. So now that I've got my measuring stick right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at building my actual transactions sheet. So table. So I'm just going to put draw a line through here, and I'm going to put, this is basically where this table will end. I'm just going to put the black file there, and now I'm going to start with my transactions sheet. So this is what I'm going to do on a daily basis as transactions. Okay, and just gonna, and my table headers for it is of course the date when the transaction was made, the description of the transaction, the category. Okay, because we need to put in a category, right? And of course, it's going to be the amount paid. And lastly, we also need to have our payment type. So I'm just going to put in payment or payment method. Okay. So this is basically going to be my transaction, and I'm just going to make it a local stand, that it stand out, because this is our heading. So I'm just going to make it there, put in some cosmetic features into it. So now, after that, I'm just going to push it down to say a row or cell number 100, and this is, I'm just going to put in my format in terms of how I'm going to build this up. So this is going to be built on the date format. I like to do this ahead of time, guys, because when you're not going to run into issues. So it's going to be a short date. This description, I'm going to keep it as general. Categories, I'm going to keep it as also as general, right? And my amounts is, I'm going to have to put this in either currency or accounting. I prefer to do it under accounting because it's going to be a calculated field. So I'm going to make that accounting, and of course my payment method can stay general as it is. So what I'm going to do in this year is I'm going to build it in such a way where it must show the categories, right? So instead of me typing in the categories which I have there, I'm actually going to build it in. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to use these categories where I can just click and select it in here, okay? So now the way I do it is I highlight this whole column here, and I go to my data validation, and I click on data validation, and I select the data validation as my list, right? And the option that I'm going to select is that there. As you can see, I've selected it there, okay? So now if I say okay, then what happens is then whenever I want to add in my categories, it gives it as a drop-down menu, okay? So I don't need to still enter my categories in all the time. Also, I want to add in a payment method, and the payment method that I'm going to be using is coming from a different worksheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open another worksheet, and I'm going to call this first worksheet. I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it this month, so it's September. Okay, I'm going to name that for this month, and this one I'm going to rename, and I'm going to call it payment method. Okay, so I don't get confused with Mizzou. And my payment method here, I'm just gonna make this payment method again. And here I can put in what my different payment methods gonna look like, right? So first of all, I can add in, it's say if I've got 2 credit cards, I'm gonna go and say that's my credit card. I'm gonna put in brackets FND, okay? And the second one, I'm gonna go credit card again, but this time it's gonna be APSA, okay? And then I'm gonna put in my other one, which is my debit card, perhaps now. And that's also FNB if I've got multiple. Normally when it's multiple, then I put it in like this, and I'm gonna go EFT, a debit order, right, and so on. That's the only thing I can think of at the moment. So that's going to be my payment method. So now the same thing I've done with my categories, I'm going to do with my payment method as well. So I'm going to highlight that right down to cell 100 once again. So if you've got more transactions, you can of course highlight it even further if you want to. And now I'm going to go back to my data validation, and I'm going to list it with my source is going to be, of course, under payment method, and I'm going to list it with those. So guys, I'm going to highlight it, but I'm going to go push it a little bit further beyond that point, because if I want to add in another or additional payment methods, then there is space for that. I don't need to extend the list again. So you can see I'm pushing it down maybe 3 or 4 cells extra, okay? So there we go, and I say okay. So now I can at any time just add in my payment methods that's populated there. So that's easier. Now we're going to start the one thing I don't like, as you go down, you can see that your top section disappears, right? So my budget, I actually want to set as to stay there as I'm scrolling down. So what I'm going to do is, there's one thing I just remembered. I want to actually add in a total, right? So in my total field, I'm going to calculate my budget, my actual, and my difference. So I'm going to calculate, that's going to be my sum formula. So sum tab, and that I'm going to calculate, close down. So guys, you can also, as I'm calculating these, you can, of course, our categories are going to change, but these are the general categories that I can think of, but you guys will see what I'm coming at. So instead of me summing all of them, I've summed the one. I can just go to my autofill, as I mentioned in the previous session. There, I just move to that dot, and I just drag it across, and it will do them. Do that again. There we go. And they will automatically calculate. Again, these ones, I'm going to make it also, all 4 of them, I'm going to change it to, let me make that also accounting. There we go. Now, it's coming along. It's coming. We're getting there. Now, first of all, To add in my budget. So I'm just going to add in a rough budget. So this is now what you budgeted for those categories for the month, right? So first of all, I'm saying I'm going to budget for, say, for my car payments and overall car, I'm going to make it 4,000. My shopping every month shouldn't go higher than 3.5. Okay. And my fuel more or less must be about, say, let's make it 2.5. Right? My house, this is now, say, if you're paying a bond on your house still and so on. So say your bond comes to about 8,000, right? And the utilities is your electricity, your water and sewage, and all of that. It's about, say, 2.5. Okay, I'm just working out roughly. Entertainment, you don't want to go beyond 1,500. Your personal stuff, you're budgeting for 1,000 rand, and so on. And you can do your medical. If you don't have, or your medical aid just gives you limited, then you can put that in. And other, of course, you can just make it again 500. So now this gives you your overall total, and now to get your actual, and of course it works out your difference. Now difference is going to be that minus your actual. There we go. So then you just populate that again, just drag the black cross. You've got your difference. Okay. So now we got to work out our actual. Now actual is going to be based on the amount that we put in our transactions. Now guys, I've got this basically built up like this, but as you can see, like I mentioned, if I scroll down, I kind of lose my measuring stick. So I'm going to freeze it right here. So I'm going to freeze the panes or freeze the cells up to this point. So the way Excel works is you have to take the adjacent column as well as the cell, or the adjacent cell to the column and the row. You want to freeze the entire table. Okay, so I want to take this whole table, so the adjacent cell, the last cell at the end of my table is this one here. Okay, so now that I've selected, I go to View tab button, and under View tab button, you'll see that there it says freeze panes. You can actually see on the icon there, they indicate to you where it must freeze it. It's the adjacent cell to the column and the row, right? So they have selected it, and I click on freeze panes. Now it freezes it there, so even if I scroll, I still have my measuring stick, okay? So now I've got that in place, and now I can build my actual. So with my actual, what I want to do is I want to calculate everything under the category. So say for instance, I say look on the 2nd of the month. So I go out to September. Okay. On the 2nd of the month, I did my car payment. Okay, and the category falls under auto car, and the amount was 3,800, and the payment method was EFT, not EFT, debit order. Okay, so I've got that, but you will see nothing puts in the actual. So what I want to do is I want that to be calculated at the end of the day, all my different payments, and be inserted in the actual. Okay. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to use a function called sumif. Okay, so just to not to explain to you in, in in my terms, I'm just going to let the application do it for you. So I'm going to go to formulas, and I'm going to go insert functions. So you will see automatically it inserts, or it brings up this little formula builder here, and I'm on sumif, and it says here um, the sumif adds the cells specified by a given condition or criteria. Okay, and our condition is of course the categories. And so what I'm going to start with is I want to insert that function, and here you guys can see how easy it is. So where I want to insert the function, so I'll select the cell, insert function, sumif, I click on the insert function button. My range is my categories here. That's the range that I want to calculate, and I highlight them all right down to cell number 100, okay? And so it is from there to C100. My criteria is going to be my measuring stick. So my criteria is this here. That will be my criteria. So I click on that cell and then I select it's going to be those items there. Okay, minus the total, of course. You don't want to calculate the totals into your actual. So here we're going to take our sum range, and our sum range is going to be to calculate the amounts of those categories. So then I select that and I drag it down and I select my categories. Done. There we go. So now I just click on done, and you can see it automatically adds it in. And now I can start putting in all of my different dates and so on. So on the next date, so say for instance, your debit orders was going off, and right, and now it is your mortgage or your bond. So your bond came to about so that we put on the house, and that is now went off, and it was the banks were lenient that month, so they just gave you took off 7.5, and you can now that's also pivot order, and you can see it's now starting to insert those figures automatically, right? And you can now go and you say on the 4th, you did some shopping, so okay, and then that will fall under food shopping, and this came to about, at that time it came to about say 2,000 rand. That came to 2,000 rand, and that you pay with your debit card FNB, you know, and on the 8th, see guys, to the proper dates. Line 2020, okay, and now you can add in your different items. So you paid a fine perhaps on that day, and that falls under other, right? And the fine was 500 bucks, and you paid that via let's go with your credit card, APSA, and so on. So you guys can see now, as I insert it, it will actually start accumulating, bringing up your totals, and so on. So now, as you do your different transactions for the month, as you scroll down lower and lower, you'll see that because we froze it at the top, it stays the same. But the question you might come to now is, yes, Angela, all good and well, you've done that, right? But where does the card payments come? How can I see how my overall card payments was done from, if I paid more out of my EFT, if so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to that, we will now start doing a pivot table and do a summary of our cards only. So before I do that, guys, I'm just going to quickly unfreeze my panes quickly. I just want to, I think I'm just going to push it a little bit down. So I'm just going to unfreeze my panes. I'm actually going to freeze it up to that point there, I think. So let me go further down. I'm going to freeze it there. I think that's better. Yeah, that gives me some room to play with. Anyway, so now I want to work with my card payments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my table, of course. I'm going to go to insert and go to pivot table, because that's the table that I want to get the summary of. So I go pivot table. That's my range that I've selected. That's all good and well. I'm not going to put it on a new worksheet. I can if I want to. I'm going to keep it on the existing worksheet, but I'm going to start my table range starting from J, okay, from column J. I'm just going to go a little bit lower. There we go. So I'm going to start with there. And I'm just click on OK. Okay, so there I've got my pivot set down. But what I'm going to do is I want to now build it up. So what I'm going to be building it up from will be my payment method in my rows. As you can see, there it comes up. And I want to do the payment method, but per the categories that I've done it in. So there we go. And of course, I want to have the sum of the amount. So there I can now see how it's being built up. Okay. So now that I've got that in place, right? As I go along, I can now start putting it in. But you guys saw that the table that I've selected was only this part here, right? So I'm just gonna quickly make a little correction there. I'm gonna go and select my field list again. I'm gonna kill this for now, close that down. I'm gonna change my data source again, okay? This time around, I don't wanna go to E22. If I start from 19 and I throw it down, right down to 100. So now, if I should look at it again, there I can see there's my headings. Okay, so the reason why I pushed it lower, and you guys will see why, because then it's going to be much easier. So it's some of my methods, and of course my description, not my description, but my payment methods should be right at the top. Okay, so I'll drag it to be at the top. So that's all organized in order. Now the reason why I stretched it out further, guys, so if, say for instance, I now got my pivot table there to show me my how much money I've spent on each payment method. So say for instance, I now go and I say for the 12th of September, right, I'm arranging a birthday party. So it's gonna be, let me just make a party, and it's gonna be under entertainment, and I'm going way over budget with this, so I'm gonna go 3,000, and then I'm gonna be paying from my debit card, or let me make it my credit card, FNB. Okay, so you will see it immediately doesn't pop up and populate, but if I go to my pivot table, click on pivot table analysis, and I click on refresh, it will automatically put that in as well, due to the fact that I've now stretched it out so it will read the other cells as well, and I can just go every time I refresh, it will add it in. So yeah, I've got my measuring stick, my amount that I spent on my cards, as well as my transactions that I'm doing right through the month. And you can save that as a template, and you can just rinse and repeat for each month. Okay. So guys, that's it. 27 minutes, and yeah, that's complete. So I'll stop the share and I'll open it to questions.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Angelo.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I've got a question. If you took your month of September in that one tab, and you obviously want to have the year running, would you just copy that tab across into, just copy it and create the tab for October?
Yes. That's a good question, Colin. Let me quickly, I'm going to share my screen again, guys. That's a good question. I wanted to go through that, but I thought, I'm going to leave that open for questions, because there's, of course, different ways people do this. So as you notice that I built everything within one sheet, I find it much easier this way. So say, for instance, it comes down to October, right? And this is why I populated the figures already. So what I'll do is I'll just kill my actual, and I'll take out all of these things as well, right? And then what I'll do is I'll just make a new month from each one of these. You hold down the Alt key, guys, and you just drag it across. So I'll hold down the Alt key and I'll drag it across. It says September 2, but then you can just rename it and call this October, right? And so you can go on and on and on and on. Now, what I've done with my personal one is I made another sheet, and I would actually make it an annual one where I put the totals of September, October, and so on, and I'll just calculate that to show me what I've spent for the whole year, right? So you can build that up as well. But that is how easy you can just repeat the months right through and so on. All done it, so then you get your annual report for at the end of the year as well. Does that answer the question?
Yep. Spot on.
As usual, people, thank you very much. God bless. Love you guys, and hope to see you on Monday.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Angela.
everybody.
Thanks,
Yes,
Helen.
yes.